What is with all these young people getting married?
I know.
Like 23?
Yeah.
You don't even know what life is when
Right.
you're 23. That is, or at least I didn't. I'll speak to
I know.
myself.
I feel like,
myself.
not to go on another tangent, but I feel like that's normal in specific parts of the country.
Agreed.
But for like us, I feel like I have never seen people getting married that young. And then all of a sudden, with the rise of TikTok, I feel like I'm seeing it so much more. So I'm like, is it becoming more common or was it always there, but I'm just seeing it more now?
I think we're just seeing it more. I think it's becoming less common.
Yeah.
I think it's becoming way more common to either not get married at all or just spend so much more of your time single.
And like building your career and stuff. Yeah.
And then settling down like mid 30s and also having kids later.
Yeah.
And I feel like that has to do also with just modern medicine. Like it used to be dangerous to have kids later. But now that's extremely common and it's so much safer with modern medicine. So I feel like those play a role in it.
That's true. Yeah.
I actually fear the day that I have children because I am so scared that my kids are going to grow up. And I'm not trying to hate on people that get married early.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that it's so much safer in most situations to wait. And I know that even some people that get married early still suggest waiting.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the people that get married super young, especially like pre-20 or like 21 and younger, like what are the odds that you're going to stay together? Like you grow so much in your 20s and like you change your mind so many times.
Right.
Like the person that I had a crush on or liked when I was like in college, in my early 20s, like when I was 25, I'm like, that person that you think is meant for you, like that person might have just been good for that time. But I think about if I would have wound up with the person that I was dating at 23, I think I had a boyfriend when I was 23. I'm like, I would be miserable.
Yeah.
If I had to marry that person.
Right.
But at the time, I'm like, oh yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Like you change so much. I just don't get how people
I know.
like do that.
Like your priorities change so much.
Yeah.
Your taste changes a lot.
Exactly.
Your values.
Your goals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
And
like it's important that your like partner is in line with all of that, I think.
And I think that people do get lucky. Like some people do find that person when they're younger and they either grow together or they didn't change their mind, I guess, as much as maybe I do. But that just like blows my mind. Like, and I really don't want to ever tell people how to live. But if it was my daughter or like my best friend and they were like, should I get married when I'm 23? I'd be like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Also, because if you're going to get married, that means you're going to be together forever, or that's the goal. So like, why rush it? Like, why not just get married when you're older?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure someone has a rebuttal to everything that I'm saying right now. So I would be curious to hear from people that got married young. If any of our listeners got married young, do you think that was the right decision for you? And why or why not? Yeah. I'm so curious.
I know. I think it also depends on personality too.
Yeah, totally.
Some people do know what they want and, you know, have their priorities and values figured out at a younger age. They're just like old souls or just intelligent or it depends on your personality, I feel like. And some people have a lot of growing to do still by the time that they're 23. So
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want it to seem like I'm hating on people that got married young.
Right.
Because obviously it works out for many people. But for myself, I'm like, I just cannot understand that because it's so different from my own life, I guess, and like my path. But that would be so fun. Like imagine finding your husband when you're like 22.
Yeah.
And then you get to live your whole life with them.
I know.
Like,
I
that's
agree.
So fun.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's like so nice living your 20s being single because then you have all these other opportunities and experiences that are maybe just as fun as being in a relationship. I don't know. It's like every path can be great, but like they're so different.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Sorry. Tangent. I just have so many thoughts and sometimes I just need to say them.
Yeah. That's what this podcast is for.
Yeah. And that's why I have a podcast. I remember when I was in high school, I was like, I want to get married when I'm 23 and then like travel and then have kids when I'm like 27. And I'm like, 23? You would have to meet the person. At least for me, I want to date the person that I'm going to marry for years before I marry them. And I'm like, I would have to meet the person when I'm a teenager.
Literally high school.
Yeah. And then also when I'm 23, I don't have money for a wedding.
Right.
Like I want to have a fun wedding. Open bar. I couldn't afford that when I was 23.
No.
And then I'm like, kids at 27? Hell freaking no. I have so many things to do before I have kids.
Yeah.
It's just like funny to think about like the expectations that you had for your life when you're in high school. And I look back and I'm just like, that is hilarious. And then I think about like, I don't know, like raising kids in the future. And I'm like, I hope I remember that. Like, I hope I remember what my mindset was when I was in high school. So then if my kids have the same mindset or a different mindset, I can be like, from experience, like, this is why that's not going to work.
I remember specifically in like grade school. I mean, we went to grade school. That's not like people go to elementary school.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I realize that's a difference because we went to Catholic school. And we called it grade school, kindergarten through 8th grade.
Yeah.
And then, other people were like, what's grade school?
What's grade school?
Yeah.
But in grade school at some point, I remember there was a project I had to do where I had to like make a timeline of my life. I think I've done this like multiple times, honestly. There was like a timeline of your life and it was like a little path and you would draw a sidewalk and write stuff into squares. And I wish I knew where it was to see like how different things were. But
yes.
I definitely had like a full plan for myself. I think it stopped probably when I was like 30 because I'm like, well, at that point, I'll be so old. It doesn't even matter. You know, it sounded so old to be 30. But I had all these plans for before 30 and I'm so curious like I doubt I'm still on the same track, but it'd be so funny to look at that and be like, none of that happened.
Your concept of age is so different when that's why I thought I wanted to get married when I was 23 because I thought 23 was so old.
Yes.
And like you were so mature and well versed when you're 23.
Yep.
And I'm like, Mia 23, scary.
Yeah.
Like, no, she cannot be a wife.
No.
Or a mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember thinking 30 was like so old. And then even with age now, I'm 26 and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so old. Like, I don't have time, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm like, I feel that way every year.
Yep.
So then next year, I'm going to feel that way. And I'm going to be like, I was so young last year.
Right.
So I'm trying to shift how I think about age in my mind for my own mental health.
Yeah, honestly, me too. And it's kind of tough.
Yeah, it's so tough. It's weird that in life, you're really like constantly changing up until a certain point. And I feel like for a lot of people, it's up until you get married and have kids because then your life kind of in a way revolves around your kids and like they're constantly changing. So it's almost like you settle into this like routine once you have kids and you don't change as much as a person, or at least that's how it seems to someone who doesn't have kids. And then, oh my God, where was I going with that? I have no idea.
Sometimes when I leave here, I'm like, oh shoot, like I wanted to say that in like that moment.
I have that all the time.
There's so many things where I'm like, I should have said that, or like even listening back, I'm like, and I should have interjected there and said that.
I think that every single episode.
I'm like, just chill. Like,
yeah. I think that every episode because there's always something where I'm like, and also this, like, or here's the finishing like sentence to that thought.
Right.
And then I edited a reel the other day and put it on YouTube as like YouTube shorts or whatever. And it was the story about someone having bad hygiene. And I was reading a story. So it was someone else's words. And they were saying like, oh, my friend has bad hygiene. He's disgusting. Am I the asshole for like telling him the truth or whatever? And then someone commented on it and was like, have you two perfect princesses like ever considered that maybe he has mental health struggles and like blah, blah, blah. Like you're just gossiping. And I commented back and I was like, actually, yeah, we did. In the full episode, we commented on how it is not easy for everyone. And I was like, I'm literally reading someone else's words in this story. Like,
these are not my thoughts.
Like, what? And I'm like, yeah, just because every single thought I've ever had isn't included in this 90-second clip doesn't mean I didn't think
Consider it.
And it doesn't mean I'm a stupid like girl who's just sitting around gossiping.
Right.
Like we gotta like give people some credit. Like why are people so quick to be like, and you didn't say this, and this? And I'm like,
princesses.
Okay. It's because I don't have time to say every single thought I've ever had in my entire life.
Right.
Doesn't mean I'm stupid. Like doesn't mean I don't care about people. Okay, let's like take a step back a little bit before we like attack people.
Exactly.
Thank God 99% of the comments are supportive.
Very
but like
positive.
I almost think it's funny when people are just like, did you ever consider this?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I actually said that. I said that exact thing.
Too many thoughts in my head.
Yeah.
My brain is so big.
Oh, yeah. I actually thought of every possible scenario ever. Like, no, I'm so sorry. And like, also, even if I didn't think of that, why do you have to call me stupid?
Right.
Like, you could just be like, oh, also, this is possible. And I would have been like, you're right. I even did. I commented back and I was like, you're right. That is true. But like, you don't have to insult me just because I didn't think of that.
Literally.
Like, okay.
I think that's the beauty of, I don't even know, but like that's
conversation.
Yes.
And like learning.
I love hearing different perspectives when I had not even considered it at all. I love that when I'm like that. Like, I'm just like mind blown at that perspective because it did not cross my mind at all.
Yes.
I love that.
Me too. And I feel like that's why, like, I feel like we always say on the podcast, like, oh, if you agree or disagree, like, tell us why.
Right.
And I get so many comments that I'm like, oh my God, that's so true. And I didn't even think about it.
Right.
But it's like, that doesn't mean you're stupid.
Right.
Just because somebody didn't think of the same perspective. Like, that's why we all have opinions. And like, that's why like our backgrounds in life and like our experiences shape how we feel about certain things. And like, just because someone hasn't made that consideration yet doesn't mean they're dumb. Like, maybe you should teach them with kindness.
Yes. Like, slow down, take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Before you type out your...
Yeah. And the comment was so dramatic, too. I was just like, okay, like, we can all relax. Like, I'll talk to you and I'll hear you out, but like
this is a Reddit story on a podcast.
I know that you saw literally 90 seconds of. I'm like, okay, let's not like jump to conclusions. And I feel like that's, even if you're not insulting someone or quick to like jump down somebody's throat, I just feel like that's a good sentiment for like every part of life. Like, you don't know the full story. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's even true with like driving. Like, if somebody cuts you off while they're driving.
I think about that all the time.
I just notice like older people, especially like my parents, will sometimes be like, oh, nice, like, good one. And I'm just like, why do you even like care about that? Mm-hmm. Or like, they'll be like, oh, look, now he's gonna go cut somebody else off. And I'm like, I could not fucking care less about that guy. Like, just let him go. I'm not gonna like spend my time being like, and then he's gonna cut him off and him. And I'm just like, maybe he has to pee. Yeah. Or like, whatever. And like, my mom and I laughed about something recently where we were in the middle lane and someone went from the right lane to the middle lane and then quickly made a left turn. Like, they were obviously in the wrong lane. And my mom's like, oh, cool, like, way to cut me off, or like something like that. And I literally laughed out loud. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure you never made a mistake while driving and had to change lanes super quick. And she's like, yeah, you're right. Like, she was like, yeah, of course I haven't, or like something like that. And I'm like, we don't have to like just be so quick to like get annoyed or like get mad when we don't know the full story.
Right. I know, like, sometimes I'll be driving home from night shift and I'm like exhausted, but I'm driving home in rush hour traffic that everyone's going to work.
Right.
And maybe I'll just, I don't know, go slower than people want me to, or I don't know what, but I'm like, if they knew that I'm finished with my work for the day, done. I had just done my shift and now I'm going home and I'm exhausted. Like, they might feel a bit more forgiving of how I'm driving.
And like, you're driving slow because you're tired and you want to be alert. And it's like, if they knew that you just spent 12 hours doing life-saving procedures on people in the hospital that wouldn't survive through the night if you weren't there taking care of them, maybe people would be like, oh, let's cut her some slack. Right. She's allowed to drive the speed limit while everyone else is driving like a maniac.
Yeah, that's what I always think about. Like, people would cut you so much slack if they just like understood like, who was in the car. And so just seeing the car, there's like a person in there. Yes. You know what I mean?
That's such a good point. And like, obviously there are people that are selfish, but like, our conversations always come back to this, but like just being slightly delusional in the sense that like, just assume the best of people, because even if it's not true, it's only gonna help you. Right. Like, the person that cut you off, or the person that's like driving too fast or too slow, like whatever, and it really doesn't affect you other than that they just like passed you or whatever, just assume that they're going to pick up their child from school and their kid is sick, or like assume that they have to pee really bad or whatever, because
or maybe they're lost, they're nervous, they're in like a new city, they don't know anyone.
Exactly.
That's nerve-wracking.
Like, even if that is not true, you have just convinced yourself that like, you know what, there's a reason for it, and like, let's just let everyone live. And like, that is now your mindset. So like, how is that negatively affecting you? Right. But if you sit there and you're like, oh, like, that person's a dickhead, like, they're so rude, like, I hate people that drive. Now you're in a negative mood. Yes. And like, who is that affecting? You.
And you've like labeled something essentially bad. And
Such a good point.
And like with your like the farmer story from the last episode that we were talking about, it's like, I don't know, like I feel like with driving, people become way more aggressive than they've ever been, like outside of their like driving life. Like it's like you take on a new personality, and you view everything as so black and white. So like it's either good or bad, but like you just don't know the full picture.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Yeah, I feel like I'm doing it now, but it's not good to label stuff as bad. Yeah, because you don't know. Like, what we were saying last episode.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like obviously there are certain things that are just bad, because if someone's driving recklessly, like obviously it's dangerous, and sometimes there are negative consequences. So I'm talking in the situations where you're in a lane and like somebody changes lanes and they're now driving in front of you, and that's the only thing that happened. Like maybe the worst part of this situation is maybe you had to hit the brakes when you were just like cruising before.
Yeah.
Like, is that really that bad?
Right.
Like, to change your mindset and your mood? I'm just like, I just don't care. Obviously, there's situations where I'm like, oh, that was annoying. But, like, we don't need to, like, dwell on it. Like, oh, someone's driving fast in the other lane. Like, okay, I'm not going to spend my time worrying about it.
Right.
Obviously, that can be dangerous, but I don't know.
Someone flipped me off recently.
Oh, that would piss me off.
Yeah, I kind of took it personally.
I would take that personally. Why did they do that?
I don't even know. We were like going around a curve, and I was going as slow as I could. They were going so slow. It was like a downhill, very tight curve. In Pennsylvania, the roads are very weird and curvy and strange. And we were going around a curve, and maybe I got too close. I don't really know what it was. Yeah. It was a single lane road. Like, I'm like, and they just flipped me off. They rolled down their window and stuck their hand out. I was like, wow, the effort.
Oh my God.
To make sure that I knew they were unhappy with me.
That is so annoying.
Yeah.
I would also get sad if that happened to me.
Yeah. It was kind of funny. I'm like, of course. I don't know.
I don't think I've ever flipped someone off while driving.
Yeah. Like, I might have, because I drive to the city a lot, and people annoy me sometimes, but I don't do it often. I cannot
picture you doing that. Yeah, people turn into a different person when they drive,
really,
I guess.
They really do.
Yeah, the flipping off is just like
unnecessary.
I don't know. I'm like, okay, I'm so sorry I made a mistake. A mistake that literally the only consequence of it is like maybe somebody had to hit their brakes.
Literally.
Because that happens to me all the time. Like, I have to slam on my brakes when, like, someone gets in my lane. Or, like, a truck, for example. If a truck is on an on-ramp and, like, merges into traffic on a highway in the way that every other car does, I've noticed my mom will be like, ugh, a truck. And I'm just like, I'm like, they can drive too. Yeah. Like, they're allowed to drive on the road.
I would hate to be a truck driver.
Oh my God, me too.
I feel like just everyone hates big semis.
You know how a lot of drivers will drive recklessly around trucks and like cut them off or whatever? That is so scary. Like, can they even see you?
Right. And like, it's so heavy. You have to brake so early for stuff. Yeah.
That is so scary. I just assume that a truck driver cannot see my car like whatsoever. That's how I operate around cars. Or I mean around trucks, because it's so scary driving by trucks. Yeah. So that's why when they merge in front of me, I'm like, yep, right ahead.
Yep.
Right ahead. I have nothing negative to say.
This lane is yours. This lane is mine.
Exactly.